Hello Roosevelt students, this is Mr. Roble, and this is another video lab that I'm going to be doing for you to watch and complete at home in case you were absent or in case you need to make up any work that you may have missed in class. So the name of today's lab is called Pure Substances and Mixtures Lab, and you can see the learning target up at the top, or the purpose right here. It says, I can explain the difference between pure substances and mixtures using physical properties. And I can explain the difference between elements and compounds in terms of atoms and molecules. So your directions are, and if you have nuts, bolts, and washers at home, you can use those. If you don't, you'll just have to kind of follow along with what I'm doing or kind of use your imagination. There is a key right here. It shows what a bolt looks like, a washer, and a nut. So the directions, it says each partner group will have a bag of 3 bolts, 3 washers, and 3 nuts. Follow the instructions below to answer the questions. There are some research questions that you have to fill in, so there's 6 of them here. Those will help you with the lab. So part A. With your partner, separate the nuts, bolts, and washers into 3 separate piles of the same item. When you're done, you will have a pile of nuts, 1 pile of bolts, and a pile of washers. And there's 2 questions that you have to answer about them. So this is what you should have. You should have the individual nuts, bolts, and washers. And since I have 3 of them, remember that I have 3 washers. I can't really hold them up very well, but I'll have 3 washers, 3 nuts, and 3 bolts, and I have them all in separate piles, okay? So I have 3 separate piles sitting in front of me with bolts, nuts, and washers. There's, again, a couple questions to answer for A, so 1 and 2. For B, with your partner, place all the nuts, bolts, and washers into 1 pile, but make sure you do not connect or bond any of the items together. So this time I'll have 1 pile of all the things, and instead of having them in 3 separate piles, like I had the 3 nuts, the 3 washers, and 3 bolts before, this time, and again it's going to be hard for me to show you this, but I'm putting everything, try to hold it up to the camera here, I'm putting everything into 1 pile. So I have all the nuts, all the bolts, and all the washers in 1 pile. And so that should be what you're looking at when you're looking at Part B on the lab. Again, there's a few questions that go along with Part B, and then answer those. We'll go down to Part C. In Part C, there is kind of a typo, which I'll talk about in a second. It says, with your partner, connect or bond the 3 sets of 1 bolt, 1 washer, and 1 nut. So this time, you have these. We bonded them all together. So I have the 1 washer, the 1 nut, and the 1 bolt, and we have all 3 of them. Okay, we're going to put them all into 1 pile. Now the typo is right here, number 2. Number 2, it says if you place all 3 of the bonded items in 1 pile, what type of mixture do they represent? Well, it actually isn't a mixture, so it's kind of a typo. So you can kind of omit number 2 and just go down to number 3. So for Part C, just answer number 1 and number 3, and that's it. That brings us to Part D, and this part says, with your partner, connect or bond 3 sets of 1 bolt and 1 nut. Make sure you leave the 3 washers separated from the bonded nuts and bolts. And then again, there are 4 questions that go along with it. So for Part D, this is what you should be looking at. So I have my 3 washers separated, and then I have the nuts and bolts bonded together. So I'll have 3 that look like this. I know you can't see very well, sorry, but I have the 3 nuts and bolts bonded together, and then I put them all in 1 pile. So I have the washers all by themselves. Whoops. I have the washers all by themselves. Come on. And then I have the nut and bolt combo in there also. So I have all those items together. After you're done with that, there are a few conclusion questions, and the biggest problem that people had was with number 2. Number 2 says mixtures can be separated into individual substance. What means, and I put means in quotation marks because it comes directly from your notes, that term, what means can be used to separate mixtures, and what are 3 examples of these means? Again, it comes right from your notes. It even says right here, hint, use your notes to help you. So look in your notes and look for those means to separate out individual substances. And that is it for the lab. Hopefully you're able to do okay with it. If you have any questions, ask your teacher, and thanks for watching.